and welcome back to another Beating Alpha episode. This is episode 138, and we have a very special guest. His name is Cédrick Mahieux. So he's an author of the famous 4 analysis on Bigger Pockets. You should go and check it out. He was featured as the Quick Tip of Real Estate podcast number 384, and it currently has 4,800 downloads since May 2020. Incredible stuff. Doctor in organic chemistry at 26, moved in the US. So doctor in organic chemistry at 26, moved to the US. So hobbies, a few to mention: motorcycle, history of science, wine, travel addict, as he says himself, 29 countries and counting, taking photos. He lives in Austin, Texas since 2016 and has 2 beautiful kids and 2 dogs. So any dog lovers watching here as well. So Cédrick, just want to say a big thank you for joining me today on this episode. I really appreciate it.
Well, Martinez, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
That's no problem. Again, we kind of spoke a little bit, I think for a good half an hour previous time. And we talked about, got to know a little bit each other. And you said you visited Ireland before, so that was fun. And again, talking about the personal background, can you talk about, I don't know if we want to go back to the point when you came to the US and, how did you become a doctor or in organic chemistry, and how did you choose to become one?
Sure. So I can tell you a little bit more about that. So actually I was kind of raised, with I would say what you call now the rat race mentality, in a sense. Nothing bad with that, but pretty much saying that, you need to get good grade at school and then get a good job and get degrees and get a good job. And so what I like science in general, and I like chemistry. So I liked it. I was okay at it. And so I pursued my course, my undergrad studies, and went to the university and eventually got my PhD. I like the organic chemistry specifically. And I found that pretty interesting. At the time, I thought it pretty interesting to use chemistry to make molecules to maybe help people, make drugs, things like that, to have an impact on the society and help the community. That was my goal initially. And after that, actually, as you mentioned, I like traveling and I like meeting new people, living in different countries, new cultures. So pretty much I said, you know what, after my PhD, why not trying to explore it a bit further and travel? I had a very good traveling experience, actually living in a foreign country when I was undergraduate. I lived in Spain for 4 months. I really liked it. So after my PhD, I decided to come in the US to see how it goes. So my goal was initially to come for 1 year. And that was 16 years ago, you never know what to expect. So things changed pretty quickly. And so that's pretty much how it started. Came in the US to do what we call a postdoctorate at the university. And then eventually got a job here in California, actually in the oil industry. And met my wife as well. And after that, everything is kind of history. I've been here for 16 years, 10 years in California, and initially 2 years in Michigan, 10 years in California, and 4 in Austin, Texas now.
That is awesome. And the history continues. The journey still continues. And now you're going on a brand new journey, which is, real estate investing, something a little bit different from being a doctor in organic chemistry, from kind of science to the business. So do you find, again, because we spoke before about, and you kind of, put a lot of emphasis on, kind of educating yourself, reading a ton of books, and again, you mentioned a few good people that you're, leveraging the experience and the network from, part of the meetup and the group of people. So do you believe that for you being a PhD, does that help you in business as well, even though it's a completely different industry?
I would say yes and no, actually, because now I've reached kind of my comfort zone, right? So I have a career in chemistry, so it's pretty comfortable. I live, I would say, decently, and I could think, okay, that's good enough, right? At the same time, I want definitely to try something new, and for different reasons. I would have midlife crisis last year, and a bit before, and started to go into the entrepreneurship mode and looking at real estate. But related to your question, I think that helps in a sense, being disciplined, trying to educate myself to make sure real estate is pretty much, I would say, a calculated risk, right? So I try to educate myself and make sure I don't make too many mistakes, not big enough. So it's kind of a struggle. So I use this kind of discipline to explore and to see what's the best for me and for my family and where we are going with this journey for sure.
Mhm. Got it. Got it. And remember, I told you a joke, which of course I'm not going to repeat, that I said last time about the pizza, which kind of at the end it makes sense.
I do recall, yes. So yes,
Yes.
and that's kind of true. So
Yeah.
maybe it's not. Yeah, we can talk quickly about that. I mean, obviously, I mean, my idea was okay. I went as high as I could during my study at university, and I thought I pretty much reached the end, right? I said, okay, I'm on the top. That's great. You know, I was kind of living the dream, being in the US, California, a nice life, big house, you know, traveling a lot and all these things. But at the same time, I also realized that there is more than that, and depends what you want in life, I would say.
Yeah.
And having my kids actually helped me to see the other dimension and think that money is really useful, but it doesn't buy you everything you need. So at the same time, they opened my eyes, and that's also one of the reasons actually I wanted to start this journey as an entrepreneur, and especially right now in real estate, to have another dimension, like having the quality time to spend with my kids, being kind of developing myself as my own boss and not working necessarily hard for the money, but having the money work hard for you as well too.
Mm. And how like COVID, because I mean, all those decisions that you made was prior to COVID, kind of move into the real estate business, or like COVID did affect you to make those type of decisions to move to the business personally?
So I kind of, as I mentioned, it was pretty much last year. So I've started to invest in real estate in 2018. When I moved to Austin, I actually bought a single family home as a rental. But in 2019 is really the year I started really to educate myself. So I attended a lot of meetups, podcasts, read a lot of books, watching videos. And so I kind of started this journey before COVID hit. And by the time it hit, I'd already had an idea about what I wanted to do. I networked with the people I wanted to start investing with and develop my journey. So I was kind of, the momentum was already there, if you want. At the same time, it's really complicated because I really believe that networking is really powerful. I mean, in this kind of business, you cannot do anything by yourself. There's no question. You need people around you, different skills, and it's really important. So COVID obviously makes it difficult because, I mean, obviously we are far, I mean, you're ocean apart right now, but meeting people is always like in 2D, right? 2D. So you need some adjustment for sure. So I kind of force myself to reach out people on social media and I'm in touch with on different platforms and try to set up meetings like we do have today to discuss, to know them better and to see how we can help each other and just learn their journey as well. It's really interesting. And you never know, down the road, you might be able to help them, you might be able to help them right away and vice versa. So it requires some adjustment. Everybody's going through that at the same time. So, you know, it's not easy, but we'll make it.
So COVID, I think, helped you when it comes to personally, again, because there's a little bit more time available, at least for you personally. And I think for me, for people who are watching, they have a little bit more time available, even though they have the same 24 hours before that they worked. But, now they're working from home and now there's time to kind of think about stuff. And of course, the people that was very hard to reach before, they were busy, they were running places and doing the business and all of these different things. Now you can schedule a call with them with no problem because everybody works from home and everybody kind of available at the same time. So I think there's a lot of kind of benefits into it. Well, maybe it sounds very wrong for the people, like what is that a benefit to having a COVID? But I mean, you have a lot of time to think about a lot of different things. And one of the things is, maybe you should start a business,
That's
maybe.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, because that's exactly. So I know that you bought your first property. Of course, we're going to be discussing that too. But it's just for the people who are watching. If you're watching this episode, you're still in a COVID. The date is 26th of October, and again, like this thing, who knows how long it's going to happen, right? Like nobody knows. And of course, this is not the COVID show by the title that you read in the thumbnail. But it's just like, that's what I wanted to have you on, because again, for the same time, to explain people why real estate is a great entry point, and that everybody should be focusing on starting a business, maybe, if they're suited for the business. And I think having a PhD, even though you're saying, I do understand you feel comfortable. I think you're a very intelligent person, and in that sake, you look at the things a little bit differently. So you have kind of advantage in that case.
And I think I think that's the case for a lot of people actually, because being at home, I mean, I travel quite a lot. I have some commute as well too, but overall I travel around the world actually for business. And I think being at home helped me to really realize like you can still have a good quality of life, being your family, being able to, for instance, prepare breakfast for your kids and still get the job done. And I think that's one of the key takeaway from this COVID, besides the horrible things happening, obviously, but one of the positive things, if I can say that people realize that, I mean, even the companies realize that actually people can do their job, can do it nicely, even if they're in remote places. And I think that's going to have a big impact on how the society is going to develop further, because even on the real estate aspect, because people see, okay, we can work from home, and people are going to move around and say, okay, where do I want to stay? I don't have to be where the job is now, because you can do this teleworking or whatever you want to call it, right? So that's really important. That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of different points that people, taken, and they taken different actions based on those points, because that's just the experience that they personally have in life. And sometimes you making the decisions in life because of the experience that you stacked up over these years. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because you have a different perspective, different thing. You're traveling 29 countries. So you've seen a lot of different things and different, the way people think in the different countries, and the way they operate. And you have, again, and that's what I'm saying, you have a little bit different kind of perspective on things, even though maybe you think you don't, but you have a little bit of advantage right there. So, but coming back to the point of real estate, can you talk about the first property that you bought? And I mean, how was that like, your journey into real estate?
Sure. Yeah. So I can tell you. So I can tell you about that. So pretty much, and my idea, and this is related to the mindset I had a little bit before, which was really kind of the rat race, and I can think about Rich Dad Poor Dad, which had a big impact on me, like a lot of people. We talked about that as well, and looking at the liability and asset, right? And I was at the time, so we bought our house here in Austin, and I thought, okay, Austin, nice weather, pretty hot in summer, let's build a pool, right? And eventually, for some reason, that didn't happen. And we thought actually with my wife, okay, let's use this money and make the money work for us and not just spend it as a liability in a pool. And that's how we decided actually to invest in a single family home, to buy a rental.
And that was, can I just say, and that was after the reading The Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
Actually, this was before, actually. You know what? I still had this.
This guy is smart.
Actually, well, I don't know. I think I would have been smart if I had started that a few years ago. But I think so. We did that before, actually. And so we bought this single family home. So to tell you about, so that's a brand new house we bought in a nice location, North Austin, which is actually close to the action where a lot of different companies have their headquarters. And again, with COVID, that might change as well too, right? But for now, when we bought it, it was pretty close to a lot of IT industries developing in the northwest of Austin. And it's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,000 square foot house. And what we did, we noticed that actually the den on the second story was really big. And we thought, why not adding another bedroom? And we looked at that, we talked to some contractors, and they said that's possible, and we could make a decent room. So actually that's what we did. So we converted the house into a 4-bedroom house, and to increase the cash flow and the rent. So there were some expenses to be at the beginning, but down the road, that's going to pay back. So that's what we did back in 2018. Mm-hmm. And so since then, we're pretty happy with the house. There is good appreciation. Actually, I did recently an appraisal because I'm doing some refinance. Pretty happy with that. So that was a good start, I think, in the real estate journey for us.
Mm-hmm. So can you talk about how did you convert it? How did you went and made a four bedroom house? How did you do that?
Well, so I mean, we hired someone. So I'm not really a handy guy. I'm not really patient, and I don't have too much time.
So that's an advice for somebody, like, don't try and do that yourself because the cost is going to be lower.
Yes, actually, I don't know if I can mention that. That remind me a story that actually Brendan Turner had on his podcast, what he was saying that at the beginning, he was trying to do everything on his own to the point that he had one of the toilet completely clogged, and that ended up as a disaster. He was actually, yeah, pretty big trouble because it was completely clogged. And he said, never that again. So on my side, I know I'm not good at that. I don't plan to be good at it. So yes, we were trying to show up and try to find based on recommendation some people, and we added a wall door, and that was pretty much it. And we also did some cosmetic change. Actually, there was some light in the house we didn't like. They were looks like hospital houses, and we put something more modern. And that's pretty much what we did. Worked with the contractor, local guy here.
Okay, so installing the hospital houses. So this for the nurses that are going to be living in an apartment or no? But
No, I mean, I'm saying that, I mean, it was like big in the kitchen. It was like this kind of blue neon lights, like this big light, a little bit what you have in your background, you see, but even more like
all right, yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
that. And
like an office, yeah.
it was pretty odd. It didn't feel like cozy, so
Interesting.
focus cosmetic. And actually, that's something I'm also learning, and you have to be careful too. Like you don't want to be too emotionally attached to the house, right? It's not your home.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a mistake that I could do as well. I think I did a bit where I said, okay, we can make that better, make it more look better. So you want to make sure it's functional still, and
you
you
have
don't
to,
spend too much money on things that won't bring too much money.
yeah, you have to put the brakes somewhere because at some point you'll be buying it, like fancy towels and the cups and the plates, and you will be like, there's something more missing. I need to add something
Yes,
else. But that's not gonna, as you said,
exactly.
that's not gonna bring the value, and you're not gonna get more rent for that.
Yes, you
So
have to think it's a business. It's not just your house. Yeah.
yeah, that's a very good point. So talking about the vetting your potential, tenants, how did you go about that strategy? Did you do that yourself, or have you hired a property management company?
So initially we did that ourselves. Actually, we worked with our real estate agent, and we did some kind of a background check. I think what everybody does, and trying to understand the people where they're coming from, and also, like something we try to take in consideration, trying to see if we can help people as well, people looking for houses. So even people, I would say, the way it works right now, I think a lot of people look at, the credit score, all the things, right? And we look at that definitely. That's really important because it's a business. You're paying a mortgage. You want the money to come back as well. At the same time, I think it's an opportunity, if you can, to help people. I mean, people have the right to have a second chance. You never know what happens in life, right? So we did kind of, I would say, looking at different people who apply, and we selected a family actually who live there now. And we started doing the management ourselves. But I wanted to actually, now I'm using a property manager because I want to focus my time on different things. So, and I'm living kind of, I wouldn't say far, it's kind of an hour drive there. So I'm not necessarily available right away if there's anything. So I am using a property manager right now that helps me with this.
Yeah, so I think it's a good time to kind of transition to the things that you're focusing on, because as I mentioned, before when you talked about is the ability to scale, and maybe you can tell to the people to where are you actually planning to move from here.
Sure. So after that, so as I mentioned last year, midlife crisis, started to think, I want to do more real estate, and for a lot of different reasons. I want to be able eventually to become independent and having my own time and spend my time with my kids. And so my goal is pretty much to, in a few years down the road, to live the rat race, the W-type job. I mean, I like my job, but I think I would like to have this time with my kids. Kids grow up so fast, so quickly. I want to enjoy that and be able to travel the world with them. And so last year, I started to educate myself and looking at what I'm going to do next in real estate, because I want to stay in real estate for now. And there are so many different possibilities. It's kind of overwhelming, and it can be exciting at the same time, but I don't want to spread too thin. And I want to take the time to educate myself, be good at one system before moving to the next one. Although, I mean, maybe one or two actually. And so, as I mentioned, I attended meetups, met a lot of people, and down the road, I realized that, okay, if I want to reach the goal I have, I need to go with the economy of scale, and a single family home, buying more single family home or duplex or triplex are not going to help me necessarily. And so the few things I've started to do, so last year was really like education year. And this year is the year I'm trying to take action. I've actually tried to set up, be disciplined, setting up some goals in January 1st, about real estate and where I want to be at the end of the year. So that kind of forced myself to be accountable. And so what I've started to do, what I identified several assets or products I want to invest in. And the first one is doing some hard money lending. I like the concept of this, where actually you can actually help other people to invest when the bank can't necessarily, or they don't have time to go to a bank. And I think the return, I mean, if you can do that properly, the return can be pretty good. So I started to invest actually as a passive investor in a group of people who put their money together in a fund, because I mean, I don't know anything about that. So I want to make sure I learn the rope, right, properly with the people who know how to do that. And so pretty much what we do, we put our money together and we found real estate project in the Austin area. And that's working pretty well, I would say. I started in April. Right now, the performance are pretty good. And I feel even better when I see what happened to my stock with the COVID situation. And that's something actually that really make me shift my mindset. I mean, stock is important. I think it's good to have your eggs in different baskets. At the same time, I would like to have a little bit more control, because I've heard horrible stories, especially in the 2008 recession. I had some colleagues actually in my previous job where they're going to retire, and they were going to retire a few months before the recession happened, after the recession happened, and they could not because they lost so much money because they had everything in the stock and they had to work extra. So you can imagine the impact mentally on this. So I'm doing, to come back to your initial question, so I'm doing hard money lending right now, and I'm pretty happy. And eventually my goal is to develop as an active hard money lender on my own, or maybe within funds with other people. And also I've started to look into multifamily. And when I say multifamily, I talk about apartment complex. And so I have started to educate myself, met people. And for people who are familiar with this, at the end of March, beginning of April, I joined a community called Jake and Gino. I don't know, can I say that on?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I joined the Jake and Gino.
Shameless plug.
Sorry?
Shameless plug. Just plugging things in on my podcast, promoting people. Now go ahead, of course.
Last time I come, right? So yeah, so I joined this community. I think it's an incredible community, actually, with a lot of resourceful people, really nice people. And my goal is actually pretty much to put my development as a real estate investor in multifamily on steroids. Initially, I wanted to take the same approach as the hard money lending, meaning being a passive investor, see how the system works and learn with the people, you know. But because I have this goal I set up for myself, and there's kind of a time constriction, I want to develop as fast as I can, being careful, obviously not going too fast, but I think that's the right way for me to do. So I've joined this community, and now I have kind of a better, clearer vision of what I want to do and how I want to invest. So I can tell you more about that if you're interested, but that's pretty much, that helped me a lot to be in this community.
Yes, of course we are interested, and that's what we gathered for today, for the information why multifamily investing, why real estate. But if you don't mind me kind of taking, if you don't mind us taking, if you don't mind you taking us back, that's the proper English way to say it, to the point where you kind of got obsessed with educating yourself, as you mentioned, for a year. So can you talk about what did you put when it comes to educating, again, in part of the Jake and Gino's course, which is a tremendous amount of value that people are getting, and you're not the first one who's saying, you know, that they're using Jake and Gino's approach, learning multifamily investing, which is a super great group. So it's great that you're part of that. But when it comes to personal education, like what type of resources have you consumed, you know, when it comes to from real estate investing? Of course, the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, but what followed after?
Sure. So there was your podcast, obviously. I'm supposed to say that, right?
Here you go. You can plug that in every time.
So pretty much, So initially it started on YouTube. So I'm going to throw a lot of name and publicity here. I'm not paid for that, but that's the case. So that's how I stumbled upon Robert Kiyosaki, and then discovered Rich Dad Poor Dad. Bigger Pockets, Brandon Turner videos on YouTube, and then went on the websites and listened to the podcast a lot. So I spend a lot of time listening to the real estate podcast by Brandon, David Green, all the executive there, Josh and Mindy. And that was really resourceful. And to understand, it was resourceful to educate myself, to learn more about, this was real estate in general, obviously, not necessarily multifamily, but also the one of the key takeaway for me was the mindset that these people have, how they see things, how successful they are, and why. So that was really valuable for me. That was a big takeaway.
So can I ask a question about the mindset part, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Like, what have you seen in their personal mindset from the Bigger Pockets crew that got your attention? What was kind of standing out?
Oh yeah. So sorry, maybe if I didn't express that properly. I mean, the mindset of the people there, having the guest as well too. Their mindset. I mean, if you listen to Brandon, so these people, I mean, they have a vision. I mean, first they have a vision. Then I think they have the discipline. They set up goals, clear goals, step by step, how to reach this end goal. You know, I think that's Gary Keller actually. In the one thing that actually have a very good actually. Scheme talking about the dominoes, and sorry if it's not him, but I think that's what I remember, where you can actually tackle one domino that can make fall another domino slightly bigger and so on until you reach the goal, right? Mm-hmm. So they're pretty good at this. I think they are good at networking. They are really disciplined as well. I think that's one of the key takeaway, and they don't give up, and the perseverance overall. And so I think the hustle, they are not afraid to work hard. A lot of good things. I mean, that's really opened up the mind. You know, they talk, and actually when I did the analysis for the Famous Four, that was something I wrote down, because Brandon Turner talks a lot about the triangle, the foundation triangle, with an American accent, not the French accent. And he talks about the money, the hustle, and the knowledge. And to me, if you don't have the mindset, you can have one of the three, or even two, or even three. I don't think you will succeed. You need to have this clear mindset there. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And one thing I found really valuable too, they are really giving to people without necessarily asking in exchange. You know, when you look at the community, that's something I really like in this community in general. Is like people are willing to help each other without necessarily requesting something in exchange. And I think that's how you make the most of the value, because people are recognize that and appreciate that. And so I think it's wonderful dynamic you can see there.
And that is beautiful. Again, I would love to kind of point this out, because when we talked about prior to this interview, when you jumped on a call and you mentioned about, again, making that Famous Four analysis. So maybe you can explain to the people, because I mean, there's not something that we shouldn't miss, because you took actually a lot of time and effort, and you went deep on the topic. So can you explain what's in the post over there?
Sure. So what I was trying to do actually is, so there is a section of the show, of the podcast, the real estate podcast, sorry, where actually they ask the same 4 questions every week to each guest. And so pretty much they ask, what is the best real estate books, best business books, your hobbies, and what separates successful investor to the one who don't, who fail, who never start, right? And my goal, I'm an analytical guy, I wanted to see there is a pattern in the answers. Like all these successful people, is there anything coming out? So I started to search on the forum, actually, Tech Famous Four, and there was few posts on that. And actually it looks like there was some interest in this. And there were some questions, people did some personal analysis of 50, maybe 100 podcasts. And there was a lot of interesting things to learn. And I thought, you know what, I'm having to take the time to look at that deeply and say, okay, I'm starting today. That's podcast maybe 320 or whatever it was. And I say, okay, I'm going to go back and see what they do. And I was thinking, I'm getting so much from the community, you know, that could be my way to give back a bit. I felt kind of guilty to absorb all this free knowledge available for us, right? At any time, whenever you want. And I said, you know, if it's useful for someone, you know, I would be happy with that. And so what I did, and I think that's what we mentioned, right? You need to have a clear vision what you want to achieve. So I started to be really disciplined. I have this vision, and I spent 3 months every evening after my work, taking care of the kids and everybody, working on that, just entering data into the Excel spreadsheet and putting all the data together to map it. And initially that was useful because you have the transcripts. And so that's maybe for the Bigger Pockets guy, please put the transcript for all of them. That helps a lot. But actually there were the transcripts. So I could jump to the famous four section and enter the answers. And but after that, it was just audio. So I have to jump and find it. So I was losing kind of some time, but eventually I was able to compile all the data. I made a graph. I like the visuals. And so I made some graph I put together. And that's where I got some key takeaway. I was talking about the mindset, and I saw actually what books were the most famous one, the most popular one, I would say. And also understanding the mindset of these successful people. And so at the time I reached out actually the executive at Bigger Pockets, and I say, hey guys, I've made that. If you guys are interested, I mean, is it okay if I post on the forum? Because I was kind of concerned, I'm using some proprietary information from the podcast. I didn't want to finish in jail or behind bars, posting all this information and mentioning books name or author names, right? And eventually Mindy replied to me, and was Mindy Jensen. She was nice enough. She said, oh, I like the idea, go for it. And so I eventually, it was at the, I think in May, I posted that. And I say, hey guys, if anybody interested, that's what I did there. And I started to see some downloads coming up, and I was like, oh my gosh. I talked to my wife. I said, hey, look, we got 10 downloads there. She said, oh, that's great. And then we started to get 50 downloads. And so, oh my gosh, and getting really good comment from good people and known people actually. And it eventually started to take off. I was kind of blown away, seriously. I didn't expect that. And the response from the community was overwhelming. I mean, seriously, I really felt like, wow. And eventually some people started to reach out to me and say, that's great what you did. And some people started to reach out, ask me question actually about real estate, which is interesting because that's the beginning of my journey. And I'm not pretending to be like an expert in anything, but the fact, I guess I posted something, I did this, people found that interesting and intriguing. So I've established actually good network of people through Bigger Pockets and still getting some good contact, and which is, I think, important because network is so powerful, as I mentioned. So it was a really good experience and I learned a lot.
I mean, and you mentioned that the PhD doesn't help you in real estate. So it definitely does. I mean, what other type of person will take 3 months with an Excel spreadsheet, digest all the information, put it there, and take 3 months to kind of form it and put it out there? So definitely it helps. At least that, as far as I'm seeing, from my own personal eyes. But people, you can leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Does the PhD help Cédrick to succeed in his personal real estate journey? Which of course
I would say, Martinez, I would vote. It's not, you don't need to have a PhD for that. It's just the grit, the vision. Maybe we could bet maybe a bottle of wine, see who wins.
Here you go. So you can take the bottle because I don't drink. You win.
Okay, great. I like this kind of bet.
Awesome. So listen, moving on to the real estate business that you mentioned, like multifamily, so very kind of specific niche that you're looking forward to. Like, so can you talk about the deals in specific, like when it's going to be the underwriting criteria? And of course, we can cover the markets that you're going to be focused on. But from the deal perspective, like how big of the deals are you going to be looking for?
Sure. So right now, I'm looking between 10 and 50 units in the Austin MSA, like the Austin suburb as well. And the reason is I'm trying to find kind of a niche, I would say. I mean, Austin is a pretty competitive market. It's a hot market, and there are a lot of good seasoned investors in multifamily here. But I try to be between what we call the institutional investors, people who invest like 100, 200, 300 units, like the big complex. And the casual investor, even if I consider myself a casual as I'm learning, who will try maybe to go like with a fourplex, like maybe 6, 8, maximum 10 units. So I try to be between that, so I don't compete with too many people. I'm looking at, so you have different type of multifamily class, I would say, some asset, right? And I'm looking at what we call the B and C class. So not the brand new one, modern, where you see with the fountain and everything, but the one actually that are a little bit older, and my goal is actually to do some value add. So trying to find some of the properties out there that potentially can be in distress, but and are actually underperforming. And some property are underperforming, unfortunately, because of the situation. Nobody could predict COVID, and people are in financially difficulties because of this, right? I mean, there's a lot of people are moving, cannot pay rent. It's difficult, obviously. So that's not the best part of that. But at the same time, you have some people who are not running this as a business because it's really a business. And eventually they can start to be overwhelmed by handling this full business. And they have done their due diligence on trying to look at the market to increase the rent. They haven't covered some of the expense, so actually the property can degrade a little bit. And then, it's kind of a snowball effect, right? So something goes wrong, people don't come over, you cannot increase the rent anymore. I mean, you have a lot of things happening. So pretty much I'm trying to find these kind of properties and buy them at under market value, trying to do the minimum, I mean, not the minimum, what is needed to bring them, to make them performing. Usually this kind of property have a high vacancy as well. So trying to circumvent this problem and eventually bring the rent to market. And so the goal is actually trying to increase the income, decrease the expense, so you can have a better NOI, a return of investment, actually, on your property, right? And so that's what I'm trying to do, and eventually define an exit strategy. So down the road, we can either refinance, keep it, or sell it and buy another property. And this would be done by JV, joint venture, either with some partners. We try to tackle that all together, or potentially trying to find some, like a large group of partners, depending on the size of the apartments we are looking into.
Got it. So one thing, if you don't mind me asking again, maybe some valuable, I think you can give some valuable tips for the people. How do you learn that actually, when it comes to underwriting the properties, like, do you have some sort of a software, or it's kind of, you do everything by the hand, you go to the LoopNet and you look at the deals and you kind of use that for underwriting deals? Like, which way do you learn the underwriting that kind of helps you to differentiate the good deal from a bad one?
Yes, and it's a difficult answer because I'm still in the process of learning. It's not that easy. So for underwriting, so you can find any type of calculators out there. Initially, I created my own when I was looking at single family home, duplex, triplex, but this is too limited for this kind of investment. And so you have to go with something better. So eventually I might develop my own, but I'm not at the stage where I understand everything behind scene to be that comfy, right? Because it's dangerous, right? If you miss something, you can draw a conclusion on something which is multi-million-dollar assets. You don't want to be in this situation. So we have actually, you can find out there. So either, in the Jake and Gino community, we have access to some calculators, but you also have some multifamily investors, seasoned guy who actually out there propose on the market their calculator. So you have to pay for them, actually. But it's a good investment because eventually that helps you to assess the situation. So related to the market, so different things. So first, I'm really trying to understand the market itself. So going from macro, high level view to a lower, to a 6-foot view, I would say, right? So trying to understand the economic, the dynamic, like what kind of market, what kind of economy is there? Is it a diversified economy, for instance? Like there are some places in Texas where the prices are pretty good. Like if you look at the deals, it's really attractive. But at the same time, it's one type of economy. So if something goes wrong, this is it. What are you going to do if you have like 20, 30 apartments and you don't, there's nobody to rent them, right? So really trying to understand the market, high view, like the dynamic in the city, for instance, then going into the neighborhood, looking at the crime, the school, the amenities, what is close, the commute, what kind of people are there. What's the capita per family as well too, because you want to make sure that if the capita is not high enough, what we call the rent share to wallet, for instance, you won't be able to increase the rent that much because maybe you have reached a plateau, so you have to consider that maybe to make this property working, you can work only on the expenses and not the income. So that's the first thing, really looking at the market. And the next one is really trying to understand the information that the brokers or the sellers is giving you. So usually they give you a pro forma, T12, rent roll, a lot of different information, right? And it's really trying to understand what happens with this property, what's the story of the property, not just dive in the numbers. Like initially when I saw my first pro forma or any information, OM, I thought, okay, I jump into the number, does it make sense, right? But sometimes it just tells you it's the tip of the iceberg, right? So you really want to make sure you understand that, because sometimes you can have some big surprise, and you can also use that as argument coming back to negotiate and to clarify the situation. And you see that often the picture is not as rosy as depicted when it's proposed as a package, right? I mean, nothing wrong. I mean, it's normal, right?
It's a sales pitch.
Yes, and you know, I mean, that's normal, right? I mean, you have to sell the property. You want to have the person who is selling as well too, so there's nothing bad there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you really have to do due diligence and be critical about everything. That's really key.
Yeah, yeah. Never buy the deal based on a pro forma, right? That's kind of
right. And either, you know, like recently, like I was looking at a property, and for instance, looking at the rent roll, you could see that a lot of the rents were ending, you know, around the same time in the month. It looked like there was a big cycle. And so that's a big, what do we call like a lease exposure. Sorry, I was looking for the word. So you will know that when this month happened, they arrive, you need to work really hard to get people coming, and maybe too much. So you might have to do concessions. So that eventually can affect your performance as well too. So even diving in the real number, it's so critical. So and then after you go in the underwriting part.
Okay, so talking about T12, can you point out some specific things that maybe people, when they underwriting, when they're looking at the T12, like, is there some specific things that you're kind of looking for that would, you know, always bring your antennas up and it's like, whoa, I should pay attention to that because there's something happening there?
Sure. Well, first thing, like, do you need to look at the T12, especially with the COVID situation, right? Is it reasonable to look at the last 6 months before COVID and consider that as performance metrics when you do your assessment? Because based on the situation, we don't know where we are heading, how long it's going to take to get back where we were. So right now, I'm more focusing on the T3, I would say. I still consider the T12, looking at what happened in the past, but that's what I'm doing right now. Different things. There are a lot of things to cover. You could have looking at the gross market rent, looking at the vacancy, the concession, the loss to lease. All this information is important to see. Okay, for instance, you can see in a pro forma, like you are told, hey, you can increase the rent pretty quickly. It's in the market, but at the same time, you see they're doing a lot of concession to make people come over. So, well, maybe if you have to do a lot of concession, maybe it's not that attractive for people, and why? So that's why it's good also to look at the comps. You know, mention that when you look at the market, but that's important to see what is out there. So that's one aspect. That's on the income aspect. On the expense, you want to make sure. So there's different things. You can look at how people are billed for utilities. You know, we talked about reps, for instance. You can look at. Let me think about that.
Maintenance issues.
Maintenance, how many staff you want on site. So depending on the size of your property, actually, you say, okay, should I have more people? Should I have less people? Do I want a property manager on site? There are different things you need to look at in the expense. Let me think about that. You also can look at what kind of improvement you can make. So for instance, one that's pretty valuable in Austin is, for instance, people like actually when you have a covered parking. So that could be a quick upgrade, you know, you do in your property. It doesn't cost that much to have just it covered. And, you know, in Texas during summertime, I mean, if you have a cover on your car, you're pretty happy about that. So, and then you can ask a premium for paying the parking spot, right? And so you can have a good return. The laundry as well, too, is a big one. I think like some people, you can work with some partners on this, but people get good income. Or if you want to have the washer dryer in the units as well. Different things. So you try to look at both aspects, how you can increase the income, decrease the expense, and what kind of upgrade you can eventually do that people will be happy with, they can bring value to you, the community, and I mean, and to your business as well.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you mentioned that you're looking at a T3 instead of a T12, which of course you still put it in a perspective for the business underwriting. You look at a T12, but you focus on a T3, which of course it gives you the perspective of what's currently happening in operations, and it gives you, an insight what could be updated, what could be upgraded, value added, and at the same time you can kind of negotiate when it comes to the pricing, price point of the current deal, because you can negotiate based on those terms instead of looking at T12 and giving better terms for the seller.
Yes, and actually yes, and that makes me think actually. So for instance, if you see in your T3 that the income has been declining steadily, and someone tells you, well, you can increase the rent, that's going to be difficult, right? Even if the last 9 months before that were good, the situation has changed, and especially in this situation. So really something to be careful. Another one I want to mention, which is really tricky, especially in a state like Texas, is the taxes, the property tax. Because in Texas, they do an evaluation every year, and it's based obviously on the mill rate and the value of the property. In other states, it's different. I remember when I lived in California, for example, when I bought a house, my tax was based on the value of the house when I bought it. So it could stay like 10, 20 years like that. In Texas, it's different. So when you do your underwriting, let's say you have a property, so you need to check on the CAD, like the country assessment, the county assessment district website. And actually you can see the property value. And so let's say I'm making up something, it's like 4 million, and you're going to buy that at, let's say 7 million, few years down the, 7 million. You need to take that in consideration, because that can jump pretty quickly. So if you don't capture that in your assessment, when you talk about like 2 to 3% of the mill rates of the value, that's a lot of money. And a lot of people have been surprised by that, actually. And I've heard some horrible story where actually the tax rate jumped by 40% the year the people bought it, which is extreme, but it happened. So you don't want to be in this kind of situation. So really pay attention to that when you do your underwriting. And you want also to stress out your property, meaning how long can you stay in the green, not go in the red, if the property is underperforming, right? I mean, how much vacancy can you afford to the point that, okay, I'm losing money, this is not a good business, right? Yeah. So trying to find the operating envelope of your business, that's critical as well too, and see how much margin you have.
Mm-hmm. That's it. And something that people should pay attention to is insurance, right? One of those things, because like insurance, when it comes to the Texas, I don't know if I'm going to get that right or wrong, so please don't judge me. But I think there's a lot of when it comes to the zoning, there's a lot of flood zones in the state of Texas. And that could actually, if you don't put that in the underwriting, if you do, of course, they're going to take a look at the zoning, but how is that an issue when it comes to the insurance? Like, because do they go about and rezone a particular areas like in the market, or that stays always there? And I mean, how often does the insurance prices, different?
I don't know if I can give you a good answer for that. I know, so definitely that's a good point. I mean, when you assess your market, you want to go to the FEMA website and check where your property sits, because it's going to affect your insurance rate. And that might change like a lot, actually, substantially. How often do they change this? To be honest, I don't have the answer for that. So
because I know because I know Texas is more friendly state. Because when I spoke with the state, people from California, and I heard the stories when new, what do you call it? New guy come in when it comes to rezoning part, and how do you call these people? It's basically, no, I want to say instructor, but he's not an instructor. Basically, the guy comes in and says, "Hey, listen, your property needs to be rezoned." So I don't know if these things are
an assessor, inspector.
Yeah, could be one of those names. I don't know, but again, these people come in and say, "Hey, listen, your property has to be rezoned," which is ridiculous because you already bought the property with the current zoning. But I don't know if that's happening in a state of Texas, and maybe somebody can leave me a comment and let me know. Because I'm stupid about those type of things. Because again, I don't even live in a state, so I don't know what half of the time what I'm talking about. But
yeah, I am there, and I don't know either. So I need someone needs to know. That should be me, right? So no worry.
That's no problem. Listen, so kind of the one thing that I wanted to ask again, now you're looking to build your multifamily business, which of course is a great business to be in. And now you're part of the Jake and Gino, and now you're starting to go out on a podcast just like this one, which I really appreciate you, coming on today and sharing your personal journey. And there's still, I don't know who's going to win the argument about PhD and helping you to build your business. But I do believe, it's helping you a lot because you're a smart guy and, you have an advantage in the business by having that, well, at least in my eyes. So I'm going to continue to repeat that. But what is the one thing, again, when it comes to personal business, you want to, of course, provide your family, to become a financial free, again, from the rat race, as you mentioned, and you want to help other people who are going to be investing in your own deals. You want to make them a lot of money too. But is there a kind of higher purpose or, let's call it a legacy that you want to leave behind you?
So, I mean, a few things. I mean, the first one, something also I didn't mention, but I like in the multifamily as well, is you can have also a big impact on the community. So when you buy a property underperforming, and I saw recently a property that was really like, the owner, and I'm sure he has good reason. I mean, he's not doing anything. It's really in bad situation. Like the parking lot has pothole all over the place. Everything is falling apart, right? And I feel bad for the people there, right? And I'm thinking, wow. And that's why you have to be careful, because you can be emotional and say, let's try to help these people, right? Because I think that's something I want to do as well. I want to help the community, right? If you can provide a place to live where people like what they have and they enjoy, I think you feel good inside. I mean, that's where I think everybody feels, right? So that's one of them. The second one is actually for the people I'm going to invest in and I'm investing with. I also want to help them, if offer something else out there. I mean, there's the stock, there is so many different investment. This is another avenue you can explore. Obviously, you have the risk, you have to be careful, you do your due diligence. But I think that's a great product if you want to. And the purpose, the legacy as well. And for my family, it's having the time. So I think to me, it's more buying time, having the luxury of time, I think if I were making millions and millions of dollars, right? Okay, great, but that's not my end goal. My goal, I hear sometimes people talking like, hey, I want to make $1 billion. I mean, that's great, but to me, that's not an end goal either. For what? And what do you do after, right? Mine is spend time with my kids, maybe take the time to travel, show them different cultures, see how much we are blessed to live where we are today, that they have a shelter, they have a roof. I mean, they have air conditioning and heat in the same day in Texas, actually, that happened today. And also give them an opportunity to see something beyond the current system we are in. And to be honest, the way I see that, that opened my eyes actually is I have the feeling we're in the Matrix, like really like the movie. Like you can think about the digital rain, right? And I think we're in a system where everything is in place. You are taught from kindergarten to later, to your adult life, okay, you need to follow this kind of system. And yes, so for people that works, and I have nothing at that. That works for me. I like what I'm doing as well too. But there is another dimension. And I think the entrepreneurship aspect. And I want to give that to my kids. I want to give them also a sense of security so they can do whatever they want, whatever job. If it is a W-2 job, it doesn't matter. They want to grow flowers, go for it. I want them to get this freedom where they can think about what they want to achieve in life.
Yeah. So that is beautiful. Then that's a good legacy to have, So again, I love the fact that you're having the right people in place, and you're pursuing great things in life, and you're looking to help other people, and making an impact, for your family and for the communities, by like making the properties nicer, which sometimes it's like, but it makes people, better. It's just like when you come back to the nicer home, it's fixed, it's brand new, like everything, and you operate it the way you're supposed to operate it. You're adding this kind of, it sounds very simple for some people, but look, like how many people are struggling with those type of things, if you're still renting a property, and it's mismanaged, and like things are not happening, and you have to suffer kind of, and you're still paying rent. So,
yes.
Like if you're running the business properly and you have kind of everything in place for that, and now you're actively looking for deals and going about talking with people, leveraging networks, podcasts, and going about and talking about the benefits on investing in real estate, which of course, like it's one of the things for guys and girls that you're watching. I want you to share this episode with a friend of yours who always talked about investing in real estate. You know, never pull the trigger. Make sure to send this episode to him or her. There's going to be great, you know, tips, strategies, mindset shifts, techniques, and again, you know, exploring on different dimensions. First of all, on multifamily investing, because there is different dimensions for sure. And multifamily is being one of them. And people now are opening their eyes, and there's more and more people getting involved with this business, you know, from an active and passive side. So make sure to pass this episode along to your friend. But Cédrick, again, it's been great talking with you again. And let's make another one, you know, before we finish, let's make another one in the future, you know, in the near future, hopefully, where we can talk about the deal that you're going to be having on, the multifamily deal, and we can go through the numbers, your experience, and the things that are happening, and some future other projects that you're going to be closing on, which I'm sure is going to happen very soon for you.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Martinez. I really appreciate my time talking with you. I hope it was useful for some people there.
Yes.
Definitely, I would be happy to come back, you know, if there is I have a success story to share my experience and the do and don'ts, because I think that nothing can be perfect, you know, right away and even after. So yeah, definitely. And thanks again for the opportunity. It was really great.
That's no problem. I appreciate it. So again, make sure, guys, to pass this episode along. Comment down below if you want the Cédrick back. Help me to win back the wine bottle, please. And again, guys, as always, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.